Welcome to another CHRO Conversation, hosted by the Center for Executive Succession at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm your host, Anthony Nyberg, and today we are speaking with Pam Kimmett. Pam is the CHRO and a member of the executive leadership team for Manulife Financial Corporation, a multinational financial institution with about 40,000 employees and nearly 100,000 agents who serve more than 35 million customers and have more than $1 trillion under management. Previously, she served as the CHRO of Cardinal Health, a healthcare services and products company with 50,000 employees in nearly 60 countries around the world. She has also led the HR function at a number of global organizations, including Coca-Cola Enterprises, Bear Stearns & Company, and Lucent Technologies. Pam also serves on the board of Privia and formerly served on the boards of Manulife Financial Corporation and Perspecta. Pam is also a fellow in the National Academy of Human Resources. Pam, it is fabulous to have you here, as always, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I always love being here.
So we've spoken in the past particularly about AI, and I know you have been kind of cautiously optimistic about its value and its role in how it actually may help businesses go forward. What are your thoughts now? Where are we in that journey, and what do you expect?
Well, it's interesting because I was probably more cautious when we spoke about it a year ago, and now I'm more optimistic. However, I still have a lot of caution, and maybe in some areas that my thinking has evolved in. So I'm optimistic about some of the things that it can really help do to free up work that's necessary, but it's not the most exciting, soul-nourishing work for people to do. So I'm actually excited about that, provided that we can get through some of the hiccups of these hallucinations and other things that do still exist. But we've been deploying a bunch of experiments in our company. We have several hundred ideas, and we've been moving forward with some things. And it really does produce some real value. Like, for example, reading pension documents that is necessary for a U.S. ERISA filing. Instead of taking hours to do it, Gen AI can do it in a matter of minutes or seconds, actually, and then allow the individual to check a few things and move on. So that's all great. Part I'm worried about is around talent. So the things that got people in their chairs that make you a great professor are judgment, critical thinking, curiosity, creativity, and I'm really worried about how we will cultivate those skills if we take some of those journeyman jobs out of the mix. And I have heightened anxiety about that now that I see more of what can happen. The other side of it is I'm also really worried about how we really know people's performance. Because if you can be a good prompter and you can get some things out of Gen AI, are you really the person that developed those ideas? Are you really the individual that can lead this project? And how will we know? And I think we've got to challenge ourselves to think differently about our performance management approach and our assessment of talent, to be perfectly honest.
So both of those points are really very interesting to me and things we think about a lot. Does it matter in performance management? Does it matter if, we're constantly taught that for the organization, it's output. It's what have you gotten done? So do we care whether it's Gen AI that has done it or the person's own brain power?
Well, it's sort of interesting. We could be somewhat agnostic in the moment to say, great, we got all these things done this year and this was our objective. But if we believe that, go 70-20-10, if we stick with that rule, that 70% of your learning and your development is on the job, and you've taken sort of the Cliff Notes version to get everything done, are you really harvesting the learnings that are going to make you effective? If I now say, wow, Anthony has this great track record, look how much he's gotten done, and I give him something more important to do or more complex to do, what if he can't be a great prompter in that? So that's the part that we've really got to dissect a little bit. I don't want to be a Luddite and say, no, it's all bad here, but you're right. We've got to bring a new lens, I think, to how we evaluate performance.
So that's really interesting, because that's not so much about someone's individual performance as they're developing and delivering today. You're really concerned about how do they learn to make better decisions long term, right? Do you have any thoughts on how we go about training that in this? We don't.
I
but that's
know.
what we're
Well,
looking for help.
good. I'm glad because I wish I could, proudly say, oh yes, I've thought about X, Y, and Z. But we're really more contemplating the challenge, and it gets more complex in areas, for example, like investment acumen. So a big part of my company is having investment professionals who really understand how to manage volatility, how to look at geopolitical and other factors in making investment calls. And that takes a certain amount of wisdom and judgment of high markets, low markets, flat markets, all these kinds of things. And so if Gen AI helps short circuit some of that, how do we cultivate that deep acumen? So those are the things we're still sort of twirling on and assess their performance.
So moving on to thinking about kind of a broad stakeholder perspective, because I've heard you talk about the need to move beyond just pure returns and to think, of course, shareholder returns still primary, and you all are fabulous at it, but why does it matter for us to think about other groups, our employees, our communities, our customers, et cetera?
Well, clearly customers really matter because your relevance is not going to be there. You can financially engineer some good outcomes, but that's only going to take you so long. So clearly customers matter. And customers matter because if you're serving them well and your business is growing, then great people want to be affiliated with a growth story. So customers are very focal. I think it matters so much for employees, and there's so many things that we do in our profession that I cannot show you a 3-month, a 6-month, a 12-month ROI. I just can't. It's hard to know the intangible of a leadership program where, yes, I learned some new skills, but I also met a new network of colleagues in the company, and they provoked my thinking, and they now give me sort of a lifeline to call to get extra advice or help when I'm tackling something difficult. It's really hard to measure those intangibles, but it's those intangibles that create the effectiveness of the leader, the stickiness of a great talent staying with the company, and the cascade that great leader has into the organization of being better at what they do and the people that they develop and bring along. I wish I had a way, and we try with engagement data and other things to make some arguments, but we all know it's pretty darn imprecise.
Well, and you just talked about the ability to bring people together and to share ideas and that. How do you create a cohesive community when we're in the office less often or when so much of your business is in Asia or different parts of the world? How do you create a kind of a single unified culture?
Well, that is really important, and it was still true to a certain extent when you're dispersed, when you're in the office 5 days a week. So that part was true. I think it's accentuated now because we are working in different ways, and we want to encourage some of that flexibility because I think it empowers people and it demonstrates we trust them, which is an important ingredient to being creative and doing good work. So all important. But you have to be more intentional. It's a bit like, I know people that have still been married a long time and they have date nights. They're intentionally carving out time to make sure that they have time to connect, to experience some new restaurant or a play or a sporting event or a trip or whatever it is. And that's really what we've been trying to do too. And we've gone through some cycles. I think in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we over-communicated. I think it was a way for everybody to feel some sense of connection during such an unknown time. In 21, a bit of fatigue set in. People were sort of developing their routines. They got it. In 22, well, we started to lighten our communications and messaging because people said, okay, we're sort of tired of that diet. Well, now that we've started back in the office quite earnestly in 23 and 24, we've realized people want more town halls. They want more events related to things. I mean, we do movie night with Halloween coming up where people can bring their family in and they can enjoy our campus. We have a beautiful lawn outside, so we either have it outside if the weather's good or we bring it inside. We've tried to do creative things that build that sense of connection and community and what we say moments that only Manulife can do for them and their family. And so we're bringing more of that intentionality back, more messaging, more connection with leaders, and more time for all of us to get to our different geographies too.
Now, you've been a CHRO for a long time in a lot of different companies, a lot of different roles, and you've served on boards, you've been a director. Has that relationship between CHRO and boards changed much over last 10, 20 years?
I think so. I've been fortunate as a CHRO to have good relationships with the boards of the companies that I've worked at. And I think that really matters, because you can't be effective in our role if you don't build trust with the board and take full advantage of the wisdom that they bring to the different topics. I mean, I've been through some really difficult business situations at the different companies given what was happening in the world, and board members have been so instrumental. So that's important. But I believe that culture and talent, I think everybody's woken up to the fact that, look, there was for a long time unlimited access to capital and rates were low. Okay, people are a little more precious about that now. But they realize that everybody with technology and other things can fast converge into commoditizing a lot of the work that we all do, the services and products we offer. So the real discerning differentiator is people. And what is that about? Talent and culture. And I think boards are really waking up to that. I know in my industry, regulators are strongly waking up to that, and they're wanting to see more evidence of the intentionality of how you're cultivating the right culture and growing the right talent so that you have a succession pipeline. You don't have big gaps in some of the key areas of expertise that you should have as an organization for your franchise.
And what should CHROs be doing to cultivate that relationship with directors?
Well, first and foremost, I think it starts with being an honest broker. When you go in to talk with board members, I think your only agenda should be trying to do what's right for the company, not, oh, I want to get a great incentive program so myself and other leaders are well rewarded. That you should never bring any personal motives into it. I think it has to be about, here's the information, here's a balanced perspective, this is what I believe, but I can also understand these other points. I think that's table stakes. I think secondarily is transparency around what you are doing well and areas that are not going as well as they should or just you haven't dealt with. I think that's super important because all of us, when we're in front of a group like a board, we want to demonstrate, hey, we've got it going on, we really know what we're doing. I think you have to be honest and authentic and really listen to what matters to your board members and try to meet them with what they're asking for.
And when we talk to new CHROs, we often hear them concerned. I mean, they will often bring up examples like that the board was asking them something, but maybe their CEO didn't want them to share something like that. What advice do you give new CHROs about dealing with that relationship, given you just said you have to be an honest broker to the board?
Always difficult, and in the best world, you don't really have many of those conflicts, but sometimes they exist. I've had the benefit of working for some really special CEOs who have not really put me in harm's way often, but there have been moments where there's honest disagreements about something, and it goes beyond compensation. It can be other structural things or business changes. I think the first part of all of it is you have to know how to corridor confidences. If the CEO has told you something in confidence, which hopefully as a trusted advisor and an important relationship you have with each other, then you have to understand how to not violate that and be really comfortable in not offering, because it can be easy to say, oh, well, he really wants X or she wants Z. No, you can't do that. Secondarily, I think sometimes you have to be willing with both parties to say, if there is a disagreement, you're going to need to work this out. And here's where I think you've got to figure out how you can meet in the middle, or somebody has to bring a different perspective to the issue. So sometimes I've had those conversations too. But luckily, I guess I've been truly fortunate. I haven't had a lot of those difficult situations. I've had some, though.
So you've had great relationships with your CEOs. What makes a good relationship between a CEO and a CHRO?
I think you have to demonstrate a couple things. One, that you are really committed to the business and that you have taken the time to understand the business and you're not just sort of phoning it in. So that allows you, two, to give more thoughtful advice to the CEO. And three, sort of a fast follow, is they have to know that you're going to be honest, but you're going to be thoughtful about when you're honest. You're not going to share certain things in a broad form. You have to be respectful about how you manage that, as you would want somebody to do with yourself, so pretty basic. But it's really demonstrating that you're thinking holistically about the business and that you're bringing a certain lens, but you're always about wanting the company to do better and the company to thrive, and you want to respect and protect the CEO and what he or she is trying to do too.
Totally different topic, but you've been super engaged in so many different groups. I mean, head of HRPA and et cetera and et cetera. And so you're very outward facing and you're always giving back. Why is that a good thing for CHROs?
Well, I think if you care about the work you've chosen to do as a profession, you should want to learn from each other, and you should want to evolve how the work is done, and you should want to hope for a very sort of parental mindset that those generations coming from behind you can have the benefit of your stubbed toes and the things that you did that you shouldn't have done. So part of it, I think, is just about wanting to give back. And feeling that you're helping maybe shape an even better future for our profession and certainly the companies that we all work for. But probably the deepest reason is I love to learn from others, and there's little tidbits you pick up along the way. Early on when I was a CHRO, it was invaluable to be able to call some colleagues and say, hey, because sometimes my first company, a board member would assert, this is what we're doing at our company, and I'd be like, gosh, the proxy doesn't say that. So being able to call a trusted colleague and have a conversation and learn, here's the real poop, is very helpful, actually, to just being better at your job. But to me, I guess I always have this healthy anxiety about needing to be better and needing to learn more and try new things, and that fuels it for me.
Now, as you look into the future, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that HR or businesses are going to face over the next few years?
Well, I think the biggest thing, so what have we just been talking about? Being a trusted advisor and really understanding the business. So I'm concerned that we have to still actively cultivate the development of our profession in being more connected into the business, because otherwise I've started to see again a little bit of a resurgence of people moving into roles like mine who come from strategy or operations or other things. That's great, and they could have a real depth and reservoir and passion for the work we do. Great. But last time I checked, I don't see people that have pursued my career path being the general counsel or the chief marketing officer or the CFO or a segment leader. And so I'd like to still make sure that we respect the discipline and the work. So I think it's going to continue to be important that we cultivate that pipeline. And I worry that with some of the cost pressures and the volatility and things we've gone through that we've lost a little bit of that. And I'm really worried that a lot of first-time CHROs are so focused on really wanting to drive what they need to do in their day job, super important, but they're not connecting and building community. And so I feel like that's going to diminish their impact and effectiveness if they're not doing that.
It's a little ironic that this will happen at the very time that everyone seems to realize that people are more important than ever for organizational success.
So true, so true.
You've been super successful in so many different industries. Can you say a little bit about how HR best drives business success?
Well, I think the greatest pleasure you get is when your company's winning, whether it's taking market share, it's driving shareholder returns, other things where people are just really proud to say that they're affiliated with the organization. And I choose to believe in our profession, we create things from sort of behind the curtain. We help set up the right circumstances and situations of bringing the right people together, creating an environment where they feel respected and trusted and that they can do their best work. So to me, when you can get that right and you watch how great things can happen, that's the real joy and pleasure of our work. And so I believe that we're a big catalyst to the success that our companies have. If I think about about Manulife, we've been on a major transformation journey, but the single biggest unlock ingredient has been the talent that we've been able to bring, and we've only been able to bring them because of the culture that we fostered, the culture change that we brought about.
Now, you just met with our master's students, and one of the questions they always ask is, what do you want in them or from them? So what is it that you would say are the skills that are most critical to you for new HR professionals?
Well, what I love, every time I'm on campus, what I love is they ask really good questions. And so that is a key skill that I'm looking for, is I want somebody that brings this deep curiosity. When I am confronted by things with my own team, I'm always asking, well, why do you believe that? Well, what's leading you to think this is an outcome? So that level of curiosity and deeper thinking is a real distinguishing feature. I love the idea, too, that people are willing to say, hey, nothing's beneath them. Like any project, I can learn, I can get something out of it, and they're willing to be really collaborative. That spirit distinguishes people, frankly, at all levels of the organization, to be honest. And the last thing I think is somebody that really embraces like digging in and understanding what we're doing, our strategies, where we're trying to go, what's happening in the company. Like they put in the time, a little bit like a sports fanatic who really knows everything about the team. Well, if they can bring that enthusiasm to why they selected us and the work that they're doing, I think it makes them stand out.
Pam, it is always a phenomenal treat for me, so thank you. I always learn a lot, so thank you for coming down here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I love coming here. You guys are just the best, and this is a wonderful, wonderful program, and I always get so much energy by being on campus, so thank you for having me.
You just listened to another CHRO Conversation. Today, Pam Kimmett of Manulife shared, among a number of topics, her views regarding what we need to do to help create stronger opportunities for women to rise to the top of the organization. And she shared thoughts on areas where we need to be thinking about the ethical adoption of AI. On behalf of all of us who are associated with the Master of Human Resources program and the Center for Executive Succession here at the University of South Carolina, thank you for joining us.